Right, Rahul, thanks a lot for that. So that's essentially what these rules are proposing. The threat, of course, is a reply essentially to India's stringent data storage rules. We also decided to bring on board Apurva Prasad, a research analyst of HDFC Securities. Apurva, you heard out Rahul, my colleague from Bengaluru, talking about the implications of this cap on the H-1B visa on Indian companies. Let's understand your own understanding of this proposal. Is it really going to have that much of an impact on IT companies? I mean, we are seeing a major stock reaction. So is this rightfully so, or is it a bit too premature?
I think it's premature.
Okay.
So I think the implications can be high, but I think the probability of this happening would be substantially low. So as far as I can understand, the press release mentions 70%, cap for Indians. So that includes employees outside the Indian IT companies. So so we're really talking about the entire pool that Microsoft has and the likes also hire from India. If I'm looking at the data for the Indian IT companies, whereas the H-1B count has come down substantially. So if you look at the new application numbers, it's probably lower by 70 to 80%, in some cases even more over the last few years. I think the trend is continuing. There are other factors to mitigate that risk. But yeah, certainly there is a large visa extension numbers which keeps coming up every year. The likelihood of this going through, I think, should be very, very minimal. Let's not forget that there is a major supply crunch in US. So if Indians are curbed to 15%, who fills the remaining 85%? So it's really a talent pool crunch that we are looking at. And let's not forget that there is near zero tech unemployment in US. So that is also a reflection of the same.
Hi, Apurva. Good afternoon. This is Nayantara Rai in New Delhi. Before we press the panic button, we should remind our viewers that there is no way that the United States has confirmed that it's going to follow through with this. That the countries that force data localization storage will see a cap on visas. This is a story that has been put out by a foreign wire agency. Apurva, and of course, this is you can call diplomacy at its best. You see pressure tactics and then a final result. So clearly it's America upping the pressure, but no way has it been done. There could also be a midway that we reach. So having caveated that now, IT companies, because you track IT also very closely, have been bringing down their reliance on this. They've been hiring locally more in the US. Have you done any number crunching as yet that, what this could mean, what the worst case scenario is?
Look, so the count of H-1B within the mix in US used to be as high as 60 to 70% a few years back, about 3 to 4 years back. Now that has come down well below 50%, and that pool will only come down, as a percentage of the whole. If you're looking at the overall H-1B new applications, it will, I think, probably be sub 20% of the 85,000, applications that go out. So, the numbers are really coming down. There is a big offset because of the localization that the United companies have been doing. There is obviously a cost implication to it, but then the offset is again looking at a broader, fresher pool, which is not the case. So there's largely a lateral addition earlier. Now that has moved towards a bigger, fresher pool addition. And that's something we've been seeing companies announce, talk about that. So there are margin implications in the near term. I think purely from the fact that there is a change in the delivery model substantially. There is also an upside. The upside to this is it can also potentially lead to more offshoring. That's the silver lining in the entire event. It could plan accordingly, because let's not forget that these are large US corporations, and these are critical core businesses, which Indian IT companies are part of. So I think the risk for US corporations are bigger to dislodge this kind of delivery model structure.
But Apurva, the problem with that is, I'm playing devil's advocate here. I know I caveated how this is not a confirmation. The US government hasn't acted on it. It could just be a threat to get countries to change their mind on data localization. But supposing it were to go through, you're believing that offshoring could increase. That's not going to go down well with the Donald Trump administration and the whole rhetoric of Make America Great Again, because, we've seen how that administration has come down hard on offshoring, how it is forcing companies to bring back investments to the United States.
Exactly, which is why it's counterintuitive, that's what I'm saying. So that's obviously one of the fallouts that can potentially happen, which can work in favor of the United companies. Not that it's currently happening, but I'm saying that something which becomes so restrictive, and it's certainly a possibility. I'm not trying to say that there is more offshoring happening because of the crunch on the H-1B in the last few years, but that's certainly a possibility if the clampdown is much bigger. And I mean, we are getting into next year, the rhetoric is only likely to get bigger, I see. So I think the newsprint around this should probably get even bigger. I think the bigger operational risk for Indian IT companies is the fact that there is a big supply crunch in the US, and I think that's something which has accelerated over the past few quarters. So availability of talent is a big problem, especially on site. So I think investments in training and development, those are long haul projects, and they will eventually be becoming a more integral part of the model. But specific to this event, the probability of really disassociating, I would keep that very low.
All right, Apurva, thanks a lot for your quick perspective on the new rules that are being, proposed. Of course, it still requires the Congress approval, so it's still early days.